Sean McGuire, and myself run through who could be the possible offensive coordinator for Mike Vrabel, and on the defensive side as well, as reports are coming out of the candidates that he is eyeing. We also go through what the Patriots look like right now, a year after they picked 3rd overall, compared to the Commanders, who picked 2nd overall, and now we see our game away from being in the Super Bowl. And finally, we also just run through the NFL as a whole, breaking down all the news around that. That's Foxborough Rush, wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Prime. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to go to Nesson's YouTube page and hit the subscribe button as well. Now, let's get to the chat. What's up? What's happening? Welcome in. It's Boston has entered the chat. George Balekji here with Annabelle Hasselbeck in the studio. AB, good to have you back. How we doing?
Yeah, it's fun to be here. It's way more fun to be in person in studio than over the Zoom link. So excited to be back in Boston.
Look, AB does her thing all over the country, just jet setting. Denver, Atlanta, Cincinnati, I think a little Vancouver in there, Winnipeg too.
Yeah, well, sure. I love that.
Just throwing cities. Good to have you back in the studio too. We got a packed show for you guys. As always, we go through what's trending. Then we'll go around the NFL, especially after divisional weekend. The Lions blew it. The Chiefs got away with it. And we'll take a look at Mike Vrabel as well, as he's building out his coaching staff and also bringing in some higher intel on his staff as well. We'll get into all that. Let's start with what's trending. The biggest news around the country. Not just sports, not just in Boston, not just in the chat. It's in group chats everywhere. TikTok banned. Now it's back. We don't know what's happening. AB, I'm going to keep this simple. How are you holding up?
Man, I did not think that I would have like the reaction that I did. I saw all these influencers posting on TikTok. They're like crying. Oh my gosh, going through the journey that TikTok has had on them. I'm like, all right, I get it. TikTok has changed a lot of people's lives, so they're right to have those emotions. But for me personally, I was like, yeah, TikTok's been fun, but I'll still live. And I'm not going to lie, when I saw that notification come up, I had a little bit of a moment. It's a little weird to have that absence, but you just said it's back already. Yeah,
it's like, and is it going to go back away? I don't know. What I was thinking too, I'm like, we got Instagram Reels, we have YouTube Shorts, like we'll be fine. TikTok is like becoming my Google though, you know?
Yeah.
Like normally if I'm traveling to a city, you know, I'd Google where to go. No, instead I do TikTok, I can see it. And then obviously what we do too, there's the effect. But again, I'm like, we have other channels. But it's just like, I don't know what's happening. It did feel weird to see that notification. The whole thing being shut down. Like the best app out there now.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you said it's like your Google, because I think even a couple months ago when you say, oh, well, where'd you find that out? I'd be like, oh, TikTok.
Yep.
But it really has just become a real source of news. It's where everyone is going. And whether you're getting a recipe or you're getting like seriously what's going on in politics, because there are real news clips on there. It really has been a real app of resource for everyone. So I'm glad that it's back in a sense. And I think I'm interested to see who's going to buy it, right? I think
Mr.
Trump
Beast.
said maybe. I think Trump said it just needs to be like 50% U.S.
Yeah, and then they go from there. Because it's the main holding company of that all. They're basically U.S. is like, sell your shares, and then we'll allow it to be back. So I don't know. Cap cut went down. I didn't know that was happening too.
That one shocked me, and I should have known that. I probably should have done my research, but we were just talking before. Like we had a few things, a couple videos on cap
That's
cut.
my bread and butter for closed captioning when I post on Instagram or anywhere.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to let us know, like what's the next best app,
leave us a
backup.
comment.
Yeah. Have you seen any? I don't know of any.
I found out 5 minutes before we started the show, so I'm still processing it. You know, I'm still in my early stages of grieving that Cap Cut's gone. I like that you point out like the recipes you find, because that was it for that was TikTok for me. It was recipes. It was DIY stuff at home. It was traveling info, like recommendations, let alone like the news source. Exactly, and that too of like I just need to mindlessly scroll and escape.
Yeah.
The world is crumbling, as we know, but it's back. I don't know. It's just the ebbs and flows day by day. Hey, going to Chicago, the Chicago Bears, they interviewed Eddie George for their head coaching vacancy. This one comes after they've done now 16 total head coaching interviews. See the tweet on your screen from Jay Glazer saying the Bears are scheduled to interview Eddie George for the head coach interview. George has been the head coach at Tennessee State the last 4 years, was named coach of the year for his conference, and led his team to a coach championship as well. So obviously Eddie George, a long time, one of the all-time great running backs in the NFL, never missed a game, over 10,000 career rushing yards, has gone 24-22 at Tennessee State, which is an HBCU program. And this is a guy, when I first saw it, I was like, why? He's obviously not up for a head coach. Last season he spent with the Bears, though, in their coaching fellowship as a coach, so learning from them. And this being their 16th coach interview of the cycle, like it's the information gathering process of it all. And for the Bears, maybe Eddie George isn't the head coach candidate, right? Like a serious head coaching candidate, but you bring him in, revisit with him, learn from him, see where he's at. And who knows down the road, OC opening, running backs coach opening, or head coach opening. They remember when we spoke to Eddie George in 2025, now it's 2028. Let's see where he's at now. So it was interesting to see like Eddie George interviewing Bears head coaching opening. But when you like sift through, you're like, this actually makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good point about just networking and really getting to follow someone over the course of their career,
Yeah.
right? But I think, right, it is an outside the box interview,
Yeah.
but the Bears, they can't interview certain coaches right now, right? There are
Yes.
still a lot of teams obviously still playing, and so this makes sense timing-wise for him to be interviewed. But you're right, allows you to really understand the breadth of Eddie.
Yeah. And even for the people going, well, this is Rooney rule, because you do have to interview 2 minority candidates for head coaching, coordinator, GM. They already interviewed Thomas Brown, who was with the Bears and in their building. Ron Rivera, now he's outside of the building, so that's what checks the box and satisfies the Rooney rule. Also, Anthony Weaver, who's with the Dolphins, and then Brian Flores, who's the Vikings defensive coordinator. So my first reaction was they're doing this to check the box, but no, I was wrong. They've satisfied that. It's just the information gathering process. And to hear them doing this, like this is what I ripped on the Patriots for not doing, of you could do the full head coaching search, still get your guy, could have gotten their guy in Mike Vrabel. You learn. Yes, Thomas Brown was an interim head coach of the Bears, but that's a guy that learned under Sean McVay. Ron Rivera, you could have your opinions on him during his tenure with the Commanders. I mean, obviously the team, when they were with him, picked number 2 overall. Now they're a game from the Super Bowl without him, but that's still an experienced head coach, a guy that's been around. Anthony Weaver, Brian Flores. Like, you gather information. Franchises are better off talking to these candidates. So it's a respect to the Bears. They probably have their guy in their mind. If it's a Ben Johnson or maybe Cliff Kingsbury, they need the Commander season to end to bring them in person. But they're still doing their due diligence and seeing as many candidates as possible.
Yeah, Ryan Poles said before this process even started, we're gonna look at all avenues.
Yeah.
Might be a little surprised by who we're gonna interview, but I think at the same time, when you have that poor of a season, you got to show the world that you're gonna do anything
Everyone.
and search all avenues.
Yeah, I think Cliff Kingsbury ends up being the guy. Is this your first time with the timer? Like
The second
hosting
time,
a show with
but
the
I
second?
still got a little. I heard it.
Right?
Ticking. I got a little nervous there.
Every time that timer goes off now, I think of people running.
Yeah.
Because you told me when you were running, it went off and it got you. And
I remember the exact spot. I was on a Highland and Weston Road, 5 minutes from the Rivers High School. And it caught me off guard.
I'm not a podcast listener when I run. I am when I work out difference.
I was listening to you.
I'm flattered. I am flattered. If I was listening to me, it would just be more of like, this guy's an idiot, so it fuels me to want to run harder.
Yeah.
That's it?
No, that's what I do for myself. I'll listen back to interviews that I've done. I'll be like, man, why did you? Like, at least I'm getting mad at myself on a run, and I can use that energy in my workout.
Always good to be your best critic. And then always, it's never as bad as you think it was. Never as good as you think it was either, but never as bad as you think it was too. All right, there we go. A little advice. So Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, speaking of coordinator candidates that could be head coaches, and both that have interviewed with the Bears virtually, they are now expected to take head coaching jobs. Here's a tweet from Adam Schefter. With the Commanders' upset win over the Lions, the NFL's coaching cycle has been dramatically sped up. Detroit defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn and offensive coordinator Ben Johnson can now interview and take head coaching jobs as soon as this week. They've both interviewed with the Raiders, Bears, and Jaguars. Johnson also interviewed with the Patriots. Aaron Glenn also with the Jets and Saints. But I agree. I mean, these two guys were top of the chain, top of the totem pole, head coaching candidates. Glenn defensive-minded, Ben Johnson offensive-minded. I am still shocked, and we'll get into it. I'm still shocked over that Lions loss, their season being done this early in the postseason. But now it is two of the hotter coaching candidates, not named Mike Vrabel because he's already with the Patriots, now hitting the job market.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were shocked, and you got to wonder, like, does Glenn and Johnson interviewing for some of these head coaching jobs and kind of getting the ball rolling during that bye week, like, did that divide their attention, you know, to prep for the Commanders game?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I just know from even having to study, you know, from middle school to the end of college, studying for different exams, right? For different classes, like that's stressful enough. Now think about potentially having a dream job, getting to be a head coach in the NFL, right? Yeah. You care so much about that, but you're also trying to go win a Super Bowl with your team. So I have to imagine that there had to be some effect of those interviews coming up and probably those conversations starting to happen the week before this game.
Yeah. I would give it more towards the defensive side, but again, the Lions, how depleted they were. 18 players on the IR. They lose a starting cornerback literally first or second play of the game. You know, I think like it's Hayes in the barn when it gets to a certain point. especially with them having a bye. And it's not going to be 24/7 preparing for the playoff game. But certainly, like, as light as it seems, like virtual call, it's not like it takes an hour. Like, these could take multiple hours. There is that tax mentally on your bandwidth, I bet, as you prepare for a game. But also, like, hey, you put yourself in this position, you want the job. It's the same anytime you look for a job. You got to juggle job interviews while you're still filling in your full-time job. Not as difficult what I do or what we do as being an offensive coordinator or coach in the NFL, period. But yeah, I get that. I wonder now if it does affect especially Aaron Glenn's candidacy because of how bad that defense looked. They couldn't get a stop. 9 possessions, actual possessions by the Commanders, 5 touchdowns, a field goal, 1 punt, 1 missed field goal. And they just didn't seem to have an answer, especially on key downs like 3rd and 4th down. And with Ben Johnson, too, I go back to the Jameson Williams reverse pass. I wonder if it has an effect. I don't think it does. I would want either one of those guys to be my head coach. But that is what we see of like Cliff Kingsbury's only helping himself in his job prospects. Maybe both of them took a hit, but also it's more than one game, you know? So that's what I wonder. But I see where you're going, and I understand what you're saying with that, AB, of like you wonder what effect it had on the field too. But when you're really good, that's what happens. People poach your coordinators. Right? The buzzer never gets old.
People poach your coordinators. Like, oh.
Poach them. Take them away. If you're enjoying the conversation, be sure to tune in Monday through Friday to Boston has entered the chat. We talk all the latest news in sports and in Boston and around the country each and every day. You can find it on YouTube, Twitch, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, wherever else you get your podcasts. That is Boston has entered the chat. Wherever you get your podcast and wherever you like to watch them as well. All right, AB, let's get into it. So we're talking about Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn. Commanders win 45-31 over the Detroit Lions, over the number 1 seed in the NFC. Detroit, a year removed from a 17-point lead in the NFC Championship game, is out in the divisional round of the postseason. They were the favorite pretty much whole second half of the season to win it all. As banged up as the defense was, the offense was full of strength. And I was just shocked where the Commanders went in and Dan Campbell and the Lions. They bullied them. They played their game. They controlled the game. They knew when to turn it up on 3rd and 4th down. And just sheerly, they like watching that. If you were dropped on earth, there's always like the comparison I like to put, you know, if they were dropped on earth, someone, and that was the first football game they ever watched, you go, this Commanders team is sick. They're filthy. They're the best team in the NFL. And be like, this Lions team, they're like, they're all right. And like that's what it was. 45-31 the final. Washington pulling off such a stunner beating the Lions.
Yeah, you would not know. No ball security from the Lions. And Dan Campbell even said in his post-game interview, he's like, something was off. It was a little odd. Like, it wasn't really us. And I thought it was so interesting for him to say odd because that is true. This team hasn't been turning the ball over that much on offense, right? Like, just to see what Jared Goff has been able to do this season and how just well executed he's been on all fronts. This was not the Lions team that we saw. So you're right. If you did drop a random human down on earth to watch this game, we would have totally thought that the Commanders were the number 1 seed.
What I was shocked by, and I expect to be high scoring, and it certainly was like the Commanders and Jaden Daniels, that's a type of team where they can keep up, and they can keep it close at the end. But this Detroit team with this offense and how good it was, especially at the offensive line, how they were just dominating. Jahmyr Gibbs, look, Jared Goff, in my opinion, was the worst player on the field in this game, and it stinks at this moment to have that type of game. Jahmyr Gibbs, in my opinion, was the best player on either team, and Jaden Daniels was phenomenal as well. But it was how they were calling the offense. And with the turnovers, like the interceptions by Goff, especially the first one. Well, first he fumbled on Washington's 25. Then there was a pick 6 where he just floated it over Tim Patrick. The interception right before half, it's a 10-point game where he underthrew Jameson Williams over the middle of the field. And then you have a Jameson Williams interception mixed in. There was another pick late. But Ben Johnson, again, we talk about him as a candidate for a head coach. Your bread and butter and what was working for you is a run game, which has always been what they like to predicate their offense on. Jahmyr Gibbs was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, he had 14 carries, 105 yards, another 6 catches for 70 yards. So 20 touches, 175 total yards, 2 touchdowns. And every time he touched the ball, it felt like he was gaining 15, 20, 25 yards. It was close, but then the Lions just couldn't close the gap. And there was a certain point where I was thinking, just keep running it with Jahmyr Gibbs. Keep running it with David Montgomery. And I think if you take the ball out of Jared Goff's hand but put it in the run game, it's not the way you may want to win. It's not the sexiest way to win. It's not the most explosive way to win, but that's a way they could have won. And it was a little bit of Ben Johnson getting too far ahead of himself, maybe outsmarting himself. And the Lions getting away from just one of their strengths and what was working. They relied on the passing game, and it just shot them in the foot. And it's also a credit to what the Commanders did as well offensively. Again, 3rd and 4th down, Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury, Jaden Daniels, how they were dictating the game, the plays they were dialing up, and Jaden Daniels executing was so impressive to me.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels is a baller, but it's also hard to fight. You're not only fighting Jaden Daniels, but say you are having a great run game, you can't stay in the game if you have 5 turnovers, right?
Yep.
Like you just can't at this level with that talent, you can't keep up. And so that's why it doesn't matter how creative your offensive plan is when you're turning the ball over and you can't play complementary football. You can't turn defensive stops into touchdowns, right? Not just field goal, but touchdowns.
Yeah.
You can't really win.
Yeah, I was thinking with the 5 interceptions that we saw, the 5 turnovers, and one of those being the Jameson Williams. Like when that happens on the Jameson Williams turnover, it's first and 10, 12 minutes left in the 4th quarter, and you're only down 10. And again, if you're Ben Johnson, you're calling that play. It makes sense. You run jet sweeps and reverse it with Jameson Williams. It went for a 61-yard touchdown. Makes sense. That is a coaching, and that's the execution to the player of, if it's not there, throw it out of bounds. Instead, he throws it between 4 defenders and gets picked off, and it shoots them in the foot. When it's Jared Goff, it's same thing of like take the checkdowns, take what the defense gives you. And he just seemed uneasy, especially after the pick 6 AB, where as it's about to go into the end zone by Mikey Sainristil, he gets popped. And he went for a concussion protocol, obviously was good enough to come back in. But when a quarterback gets hit like that, that starts to speed up their clock. And how comfortable they may be in the pocket, even if it's clean, there's something that affects them in that, where they remember that, it's in the back of their head, they're thinking to get the ball out. And all of a sudden they start rushing, especially someone like Jared Goff, who's good, but his fundamentals, his technique has to be there. And he just left so many throws out there. And his execution, look, Ben Johnson, I've heralded him. He's made Jared Goff look like Tom Brady against a blitz, went under pressure, getting the ball out quick, being decisive. Jared Goff reverted back to being a guy that just can be a liability instead of a reason you win games.
Yeah, I mean, I think he got popped. Like, he got lit up.
Yes.
Like,
yeah, better way to put it.
And I don't even know if there was there a penalty on that play?
No penalty on the way he was hit.
No penalty, which is absolutely insane. But you're right. Like, when you do get shaken up like that, he did feel more rushed. And two, like, that's going to set the tone for the rest of the game. And I think my heart breaks more so just from, I'm not, I haven't been in the Lions fan base at any point in my life, but just to feel like the energy from Dan Campbell, Aiden Hutchinson and his storyline and him trying to come back this year, the number 1 seed. Who are they going to go play? Philly or the Rams, right? Yeah. Both beatable teams for the Lions. Like, you just feel like this was so tough. Like, this was such a tough loss. And I know Dan Campbell was saying, it doesn't matter if we're the 1 seed, the 7 seed, like, it still hurts to lose. But this just feels different than any other year.
It's last year, and I bring up what they were in the NFC Championship game. Up 17, and they blow it against the 49ers. And there's questionable play calls, especially on 4th down late in the game. You wish they could get back. But that's when, this Detroit team continues to ascend. They continue to get better. They're underdogs, but now the expectations are there. And Dan Campbell said it right after they lost. Hey, no one's going to expect the same team. Everyone's going to be looking for you. There can be expectations. That loss stung. Losing the divisional round like this, where you're the 1 seed all year, you're the favorite to win it. Your offense is at full strength. Again, as banged up as the defense is. And it's Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn. Your top 3 coaches. The last 2 guys I mentioned, and Johnson and Glenn, very well can be gone after the season. I don't necessarily believe in championship windows. You're either good enough or you're not. Year to year it can fluctuate, and they're the teams that can extend it over the course of, a long span because of who they have. But this is it. Like, this felt like this was their time for the Super Bowl. The defensive injuries concerned me. But what was great about this team is they always had the offense that can just drop 50 on anyone. And to your point with the turnovers, when that is happening, when the lack of execution is happening, when you're having 12 men on the field, it's 4th and 2, and your back's up against a goal line, it's 4th and goal on the 2, and you can finally hope to get a stop, and then you give the Commanders a fresh set of downs. It wasn't the Detroit Lions. And that's where I go back to. It's like the Commanders were executing whenever they needed to. And Detroit sports, it's so difficult, especially in single elimination playoff formats. It's a bad day to have one of your worst performances, and that was the Lions, it seemed like.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it was. It was an off day. It was odd. It wasn't like we've seen. It totally stinks for the Lions fan base. And like you said, championship window, we can talk about that or not, but like, this is not going to be the same coaching staff, 100%.
No.
And And also, that coaching staff, they're going to take with them probably more people from the Lions, right?
Yeah.
They're going to pick up the free agents who are on the Lions who they want. They're going to take other members of the staff with them to wherever their head coach is next. So it will be a very different Lions team. And, obviously you're going to have players return who were hurt and all the things. But, yeah, definitely a tough one for the Lions.
Got to give credit to the Commanders, too. We're talking about the Lions here. 9 possessions they had, actual possessions. Not end of game kneels downs. 9 possessions. 5 ended in touchdowns, 1 in a field goal, 1 in a turnover on downs, and then 1 was a missed field goal. But 9, they played as perfect of a game as you can play. 7 for 16 on 3rd or 4th down. And going through, they converted on 4th and 3 or shorter 3 different times. Out of their 12 third downs, it was 3rd and 5 or shorter 8 times. They were truly what it seemed like with Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury calling the offensive plays, but they were truly playing like 1 down at a time, which is how you have to play against a juggernaut like the Lions. And they were truly playing like they have nothing to lose, while the Lions, all of a sudden the pressure mounted on them where they were the favorite. But it was, especially when it was just like how much moxie they were showing. It's 7-3, start of the second quarter, 4th and 3 on Detroit's 9. Go for the field goal. Just go for the field goal. But they knew if they settle for 3 instead of 7, Detroit will eventually catch up. Quick pass, Jaden Daniels for a touchdown. It's 31-28. It's 4th and 2 on Detroit 16. Daniels scrambles with a bootleg, gets a first down. And when they were up 10, 38-28, 4th and 2 on Detroit's 14. And at that point, I'm thinking, you kick the field goal, you're up 13. Like that is basically, that's more than a touchdown and field goal. Awesome. You need 2 touchdowns to catch up. No, they go for it. Perfect drop. Terry McLaurin wide open over the crosser. It was Dan Quinn knowing how to play the game, what to do on 3rd down, what to do on 4th down. Bigger props to Cliff Kingsbury. He knew exactly I don't care it's 3rd and 7. I don't need 8 yards. Let me get 5. Because if I get to 4th and 2, 4th and 3, I know this offense can get and move the chains. And that was what's impressed the heck out of me with them, Annabelle.
Yeah, that's why they're going to be so dangerous going on in the postseason. And that's why teams should be scared of them, right? Because, yes, you have a rookie quarterback, but they're not shying away. That doesn't mean that they're not having those explosive plays. And I think, towards the end of a game, usually teams with some type of lead, they want to be more conservative. You want to not turn the ball over, but that's not what the Commanders are doing.
Fearless.
And not only are they just not they're converting on it too. Mm-hmm. And now you're going up, not just field goals, you're going up touchdowns.
And even you think of how things went their way. Like Jared Goff started the game 8 for 10, 120 yards and a touchdown. Throws a pick 6 on his own 19, gets popped 6. Okay. 1 minute in game time after that, that's a Terry McLaurin 58-yard screen for a touchdown. It was just how they were dialing up the plays, how they were executing, and that's what's so impressive. And when I go back to it, it's like for Dan Campbell and Cliff Kingsbury, I give Jaden Daniels all the credit for executing, but Dan Quinn, as a way of to build up that culture in year 1 as a head coach, again, a team that picked number 2 overall to now be in this spot, but to know to hire Cliff Kingsbury, who was just in college a year ago as the offensive coordinator at USC, what they were doing to set up their players for success, the confidence they poured in them. And Jaden Daniels came in as a day 1 ready starter. In that game, Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury, Dan Campbell to the Lions. 7 for 16 on 3rd and 4th down, played their game. Time and time again, they bullied their way to the win. And they were the better team. They were underdogs, they were darlings, but they played like they had nothing to lose. And that's where I give all the credit, where they went in with the confidence and they went in just the moment wasn't bigger than them. And they owned that. And now it's the attention goes towards Cliff Kingsbury. All these offensive coordinators, all the attention was on Ben Johnson. If you are Josh Peters, the majority owner of the Commanders, you're looking at Cliff and go, hey, I'll give you a big pay raise. I'll give you associate head coach title. Stay here. You and Jaden Daniels, let Dan Quinn be the head coach. You stay here. Because now Cliff Kingsbury start to get floated. And as the Chicago Bears are still looking for their head coach, because if Cliff leaves, there's one job for him, and it's Caleb. He worked with him at USC. He knows who he is as a quarterback. He will be the head coach, run his own show. Because what you say to him is you go, look, you got Jaden here. If the job isn't Lamar, if it isn't Justin Herbert, if it isn't Joe Burrow, don't take it. Stay here with Jaden Daniels. But if Caleb Williams comes around, that's what you take. And now the Bears, how they played it is perfect, where you go back for Cliff's time with the Cardinals, and everyone's going to go, he had 1 winning season, team always fizzled out, never had any production in the postseason, he couldn't win with Kyler. But now what he's done these last 2 games with the play calling, now when that name comes up, he is a front runner for the head coach. Everyone's going to be all in on it. His second shot, he learned, he failed. Now he's a successful play caller and coordinator, pair him with Caleb Williams and all the cap space. Cliff Kingsbury and all this, his stock is skyrocketing to me.
Yeah, and I think it's lightheartening, or I'm blanking on the term, but it's exciting for teams like the Patriots who are going to get a new head coach, and they have a quarterback coming, fresh out of college, and Drake May, and then you pair that with the right OC, right? Like, there's a lot of success being seen with offensive coordinators who can match that college style of play, like Jaden Daniels, and just no shame and just do it, right?
Yeah. It was like when he was getting knocked and everyone, it was like Cam Taylor-Britt, like a okay corner for the Bengals. Like, they run a college-style offense. Like, yeah, and it's working. It's one of the most efficient offenses we've ever seen. Jaden Daniels, too, like people are saying, and how can you argue it? Greatest rookie quarterback season ever, because RG3 was fantastic. Justin Herbert, Dak Prescott, none of them got 2 road playoff wins. In Detroit.
So impressive with that
how
fan
loud that
base.
building
right.
was.
And
exactly.
There was a video of RG3. I think he was like outside running around. He was shouting out Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
And I don't remember exactly what he said, but just to see him kind of shouting him out and being like, man, like if we're not all talking about this guy right now, like it's really cool. And it is something that I don't think people were expecting to see this season. But just to see how calm, cool, collected, poised, like you name it, like any synonym you got for the maturity that he has shown, add to the list.
He seems so cool after it, too. Like, Tom Rinaldi was doing an interview. He was like, how did you rise to this moment? He's like, I don't know, man. He's like, I just love football and I'm prepared for this. And you see how revered he is as a leader. And it's also, too, again, 9 possessions, 5 touchdowns. The Commanders played as perfect football as they can. Jaden Daniels in the game, 22 for 30, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, no sacks. He hasn't thrown an interception this postseason. He's taken 1 sack. His passer rating is 116, and he's just going out and lighting defenses up. Doesn't have to overuse his legs. He takes what they get him. Cliff Kingsbury and him are just so locked in and so dialed in on the same page. And now we'll see what they get in the NFC Championship game. But this is like the fun story. This is the awesome story. And what's tough is for Detroit, right? The Lions haven't had the success. The Commanders went into their building and just stole all of it. They haven't been to an NFC Championship game since 91. It's insane.
Oh, man. I'm glad I'm not a Lions fan this morning.
I feel for them. I feel for them all the way. I feel for them all the way. Hey, you want the latest on the Patriots in the NFL? Drake May needs help, and we discuss how he can get it on NESN's football podcast, Foxborough Rush, available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, wherever else podcasts are found. That's Foxborough Rush. And if you're watching on NESN's YouTube page, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Give a thumbs up, leave a comment on clips or full episodes, and those comments we'll bring into the show. So what was fun is Commanders-Lions end of the day. And as I said, it was 45-31 the final. High-scoring game, massive. So everything you love in football. Offense, scoring, big plays. Thank God we had that after Chiefs-Texans. And it wasn't like you come down from that high to Chiefs-Texans. Look, Kansas City wins 23-14. Mahomes played fantastic. As it's been, and this is where Lions-Commanders was what is everything you love about football in the NFL. Chiefs-Texans is where the NFL needs to get it right because everyone's walking away talking about the, officiating. There was a personal foul on Will Anderson. There was the Mahomes flop, and there was also the unnecessary roughness, because I had to think it wasn't roughing the passer. The unnecessary roughness when Mahomes slid. And look, Chiefs won. Mahomes executed late. Great play to Travis Kelce. But again, this is all we're talking about is the officiating. First thing when you bring up the game.
Well, I think regardless, whether or not, the Chiefs were probably going to win this game.
Yeah.
And there was going to be something to combat them that wasn't X's and O's, right? And so it's tough. And I don't want to blame the refs because this is part of sports. Like, refs make terrible calls all the time. Mm-hmm. But you do have to think that in the subconscious of the referees, this is the face of our league. This is Patrick Mahomes. This is the face of the league. Yeah. In their subconscious, as the refs, they're supposed to, protect the superstars. That people are going to really want to watch a game that is Mahomes versus Allen rather than Wentz versus Trubisky, right?
Yes.
Like, that's just the storyline. If we're going to look at it from an alien out of the earth, what would they really want to see, right? And so you have to believe that is in the subconscious of the referees, but it does stink that we're waking up the next day and this is what we're talking about with this game. The Chiefs won this game. They didn't win because of the refs, but the refs certainly had an influence on the game because the refs didn't have C.J. Stroud take a sack on 4th and 10, game on the line, still a one-score game, and flip it over to the Chiefs. Now, Chiefs 3-0, they punted after that. And this is the Chiefs going to a 7th straight AFC Championship game. 6th at home. Since Patrick Mahomes has been a full-time starter for the Chiefs, it's been AFC Championship game or bust. And 3 of those AFC Championship games have resulted in Super Bowl wins.
Only one of those after they get to the AFC Championship game have they lost in the Super Bowl. Because if you go year by year from last season backwards, Super Bowl win, lost to Joe Burrow in the AFC Championship game, lost to Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, and then AFC Championship game loss to Tom Brady and the Patriots. But like that's what it's been for them. There's a Super Bowl win in there too, of course. Mahomes' first one. But that's what it's been. It's just undeniable success. But when it's a personal foul and unnecessary roughness, like that takes away from the game. And with Mahomes, like the Will Anderson one, in real time, people are like, no, I could see that. No, it was his helmet on his shoulder, and it was a bang-bang play. It's football. It's fast. And that extended the drive, and that resulted in a field goal instead of a punt. Then on the personal foul, the unnecessary roughness, there's Mahomes extending the play, slides. Two defenders collide, and it's more dangerous for them than Mahomes. He's not even touched. They draw the flag. And then that ends up being a penalty, 15 yards, and results in a touchdown. And then later in the game, on the one that's not called, is Mahomes tiptoeing by the sideline, gets a little hand in his back, and acting like he's a soccer player, just flops and flails and falls down. That's what stinks. It's like there's more eyeballs on it because it's Mahomes, because it's the Chiefs. You want to watch football, and then there are the ones that should be corrected, like the personal foul on Will Anderson. The unnecessary roughness on the two linebackers for the Texans, like colliding heads, like that's more dangerous for them than the quarterback. The NFL has to fix it and find a solution. To me, it's as simple of eye in the sky, have someone up in the booth. They have instant access to the replay, and just hit a button, get in the ref's ear. Nope, pick up that flag, no foul, keep it going. Don't even bother with it.
100%. Like we have it for fumbles, we have it for interceptions, we have it for like, ball placement, whatever it is. And yes, it slows down the game. It might take more time, but like this is playoff football. Yeah. There's not 50 games going on. There's 2 on a Saturday. Like we can get it done. There's time for it. And like you said, it's someone in a booth in New York. Quickly look at it. See, was it helmet? Was it chest? Like figure it out because those, it's not determining the whole game, but those are big momentum shifts.
And it's not even for me. Yes, it may delay a sequence or the momentum by let's say 10 seconds, but there doesn't have to be the whole replay overdue. It is on plays like that where how quickly like the broadcasts have access to instant replay in slow-mo, frame by frame, 17 different angles. It's just someone, whether in New York or in the building, up top, they have access, and they see it right away, and they go, no, ball's out, helmet on shoulder, pick up the flag, you're good.
Right.
Keep it right there.
Because you can't expect a ref to catch
too much
everything.
Going on.
It's so much detail, right? You're right. There's so much going on. Sometimes they're probably a lot smaller than the guys that are hitting each other, right? So like you're going to miss it, but that's why you have experts in New York able to do that. So I think that's a great point, and I think that's something that definitely has to be brought up in the offseason.
And here was Will Anderson Jr., one of the guys that got the personal foul call against him. Defensive end for the Texans. Here's him after the game commenting about the officiating.
He has kept this organization, this team, all year, man. He has blessed us and favored us tremendously, man. And I just got to give all glory to him. And we knew it was going to be us against the refs going into this game. And, I talked to you guys early this week. And I was just saying, man, we got to go out there and we got to do us better. And, in some instances we didn't do that, some instances we did. So we just got to keep going, man. Next offseason, get the guys together, man. And, everybody just coming together and just keep building that team chemistry and get past this hump.
So you see him saying we would be us against the refs and everyone. I hate that. And even Miko Ryan's up at the podium after. He's like, we knew it'd be us against the world. He was like, against all the doubters and the naysayers, and like cut himself off before he said the officials. The Chiefs won this one. They were outgained by 100 yards. The Texans didn't force a turnover. But it's like when you need Mahomes to make a play, getting taken down, 11-yard touchdown pass to Travis Kelce. Special teams making big plays as well. It's Mahomes executing late. It's Spagnuolo going down blitzing. Again, the fact that we walk away, though, and we're just talking about the officiating. And for Mahomes, as much as I hate to see him flop and how he's extending plays and put in this position, if you're going to get those calls, you're going to do it. So if the NFL doesn't want Mahomes putting himself in this situation, Mahomes doesn't want the hate, take away those rules and set up something with instant replays so no one's put in that position.
Right. And I don't think he's purposefully embellishing it, but when you know that it's probably going to go in your favor,
you'll play it a little.
You're going to play, you're going to play it a little. Like I experienced that in women's lacrosse when we would play girls who we knew would flop or we knew, we would play to their tendencies. Hey, you might be guarding this girl, you might be on her matchup. She is going to flop, so you need to make sure that you're overly excessively showing the ref that you are not hitting her in a certain way. And I think that's the same thing with the Texans here is like they all said, right? Ryans, Anderson, Stroud, Mixon even saw, like they all knew, we knew going into this game that it was going to be this way. We knew that the refs, without, those guys will get fined for saying refs instead of everybody, but we knew how it was going to be. Then it's like, okay, then you have to cater your scouting report. You have to cater your game plan to that. Break down your feet when Mahomes is sliding, right? Like don't come near his head or stay away from his head, like tackle lower. And I think, yes, it's a fast game. It's hard to, think about all those small little details. But just in my own athletic experience, when you know somebody is going to, adhere towards different things with the refs, or you know how the refs are going to call it against certain teams, and when you play at the highest level against superstars, you know that the refs are human. You know that that's going to be in the back of their head, and so you just have to also add that little detail into your scouting report.
The Texans 10 for 17 on third down. Chiefs were 4 and 11. Texans had 18 first downs. Chiefs only had 14. Texans outgained the Chiefs by 120 total yards, held the Chiefs to 50 rushing yards, and then again, when it comes to the turnovers, clean slate for them, and they lost. That's Mahomes and the Chiefs. Again, and I go back to what the sequence was. About to go down, throws that touchdown to Kelsey. Defense on the other side forces a turnover on downs. The Chiefs are a team that keeps it close enough, and then Mahomes and that defense shines through when it matters most. Stinks for the Texans. And this was a team, the thing with all this, though, is like as much as the Texans side may be complaining, the Chiefs, I feel like it should have never been this close. Because Houston, that offensive line is really worrisome. The offense hasn't been efficient all year. Like Kansas City, this is a game where you want to see them come out and win 31-14 or 35-14 or even, 35-21. Who cares? But like show that dominance, and they haven't. So I still have a concern for KC. I'm like, what kind of team are you? And it's not the officiating. It's just this offensive line isn't the best. The defense is really good, but this offense seems to not be able to find consistency enough. And then you'll see, who do they get in the AFC Championship game? But this Chiefs team, it's like, I don't want to doubt against number 15. I don't want to doubt and bet against Andy Reid. But this team has not shown me enough yet to be like, well, they're going to do it again, aside from they've done it twice before the last 2 years.
Well, I think that's what's dangerous about them, right? Is because they're not fully, throwing all their weapons out. I don't even think they had more than one wide receiver catch in that game. Something crazy like that, right? Yeah. And Travis Kelce stepped up big, and I don't even think the Texans were really covering him at all in that game. But that is what makes the Chiefs so dangerous, is that they're not explosive on every single play. They're not playing what you would think of the best team in the NFL. They're not executing at that level consistently for the entire game. And so that's what really makes them scary, because you can have a team like the Texans who outgained them in yards in the game. Like they had no turnovers.
Outperformed them every matchup.
Outperformed them everywhere. But the clutchness really of the Chiefs to be able to have those touchdowns when they need it, that's what makes them unstoppable.
Yeah. And you're right. It was only Xavier Worthy that had a reception out of receivers. It was Travis Kelce, Noah Gray, Xavier Worthy. That's it. Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, and DeAndre Hopkins. No catches for them. You see Caitlin,
DeAndre Hopkins. Like,
right, one of the best receivers.
It's like, and they didn't even use him.
I was actually pausing for you saw who was in the suite. How many times did they mention Taylor Swift?
A good amount.
Right?
A good amount.
And look, she's going to get mentioned. I'm not hating that Taylor Swift's going to get mentioned. But it's the funniest thing when they show the suite and it's Caitlin Clark and Taylor Swift. I think like the two most famous females associated with sports overall right now.
But they weren't sitting together initially.
Oh, they weren't?
There was a shot of them and they were on different sides of the box. I really want to know, like...
You think... sit next to each other.
No, I want to know like how it went. Oh, hey, girl, come sit next to me. Okay. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna come down the front row, whatever it was. But Caitlin Clark did reveal that Taylor like gave her a little swag bag and a message and the invite to come to a Chiefs game when she was playing at Lucas Oil.
Interesting.
And I know Caitlin had expressed like publicly how she was a Taylor Swift fan,
and she's a Chiefs fan growing up too.
You're right, and so I'm super excited that we actually saw that happen. And man, like just cool for Caitlin Clark too, because I just remember last week on Respect Your Game we were talking about the creepy, disgusting stalker man that Caitlin Clark had to deal with. And then I'm just thinking like human to human, like you deal with that. That sucks, right?
Yes.
You deal with that. And then you get to go sit next to Taylor Swift in the front row of a box at a playoff game.
Yeah.
At Arrowhead? Like, come on. So I was more so, as much as it's like, oh, the Taylor Swift thing, we're talking about it again. I'm like, you know what? Cool for Caitlin Clark, because that must have been a really fun experience. Just imagine her going to Taylor Swift concerts growing up just as a fan. And so just exciting for her, because you deal with a lot when you're in the light, and especially the good and the bad. And it's exciting for her to have that experience.
It's good to have the good be that good.
Yeah.
You know, like
that. Oh, so good. Are you kidding me?
I just think it was funny of when, like, was watching the game, stepped aside right before half, then go into the second half, put it on, right away it's Taylor Swift and Caitlin Clark. Kelsey touchdown, cut away to Taylor Swift and Caitlin Clark.
This production team that is covering, they know what they're doing.
Look, and as always, like, you know, people may hate on it, where it's like, oh, I don't want to see that. All right. It's, let's say, 5 times a game they show them. Let's say the shot is up for 5 seconds. 25 seconds out of your day. That can turn you off from football. The audience it brings, the more eyeballs it brings on it, I'm all for it. And like you said, to see how Taylor Swift has, like, embraced dating Travis Kelce, everything that comes with it. It's the most popular team in the world right now. And then for Caitlin Clark, a lifelong Chiefs fan, because she grew up in Iowa. You know, they don't have anything up there. For her to be in that position, like, that's awesome. Take the perks and the stuff that you dream of.
Well, it's super normal, too. Like, you think about the NBA. Anytime there's a celebrity sitting courtside, it's on the Jumbotron. They're showing it on the broadcast. It's just the NFL that more recently they've been cutting to celebrities and wives or famous girlfriends in the stands. And so I think that's why everyone's a little like, why are we showing this girl? Why are we showing this? Like, this happens in a lot of sports all the time.
Exactly. This one's just the most famous, like, significant other of an athlete ever. It was like when Taylor Swift ever. I honestly think
it is. I totally agree. Okay. Like, it is. This is a big deal.
That's like, it's literally like Taylor Swift. Now it's become a Taylor Swift podcast. She is, and like, I don't really listen to the music. Certain songs that I like. I think I said that on a prior episode, and people hated me for it. They're like, you're not even a real fan. I'm like, I'm just admitting. I'm just admitting, like, am I a fan? Am I a Swiftie? No. Do I appreciate her music and her art? Yes.
Cool. The Swifties are going to have their own category, and you don't want to, like, bring them down by being in it.
And I'm not.
You got to hit a certain, like, caliber of knowledge.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Admiration. Yeah. You're just like, yeah, you do your thing.
Appreciate the existence.
Yes.
You know, would love to go to a show. I bet it would be a great experience and overall. I say all that because it's like what she is. She's one of the most famous people, performers, you can say actors, musicians, whatever, in the world right now. So that's the eyeballs that come with it. It was like when the Chiefs played the Patriots last season in Gillette. I remember it was like, I think week 17, let's say. So they have 12 losses at that point, maybe 11. They were about to get their 12th. And I was like, do I go in the building and just watch like a really bad football team warm up, albeit it was the Chiefs, so I could watch them? Or do I go outside and wait for Taylor Swift's arrival? And I was one of hundreds of people.
Yes, okay.
And I did the whole thing of like, all right, let me find this jet. Okay, she's coming from here.
No way.
Oh, I swear to God. And then I found a video from the airport in Rhode Island, so I knew the convoy was like a Ford expedition.
It's kind of fun. It's like a game show.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And like cars are coming. I'm like, nope, that's not it. Nope. I'm like, oh, here we go. And it was the commotion that comes out of as she was about to arrive. You just saw like the Stadies and the sheriffs and whoever, like everyone getting in position. I'm like, all right, here we go.
Yeah.
For 5 seconds of her getting out of truck, into tunnel, into Gillette, and going up. And I was like, cool. I saw Taylor Swift in person.
That's so good. The way you described that reminded me of like on Christmas when I was growing up, the Santa tracker. My parents would have like an app. It'd be like, Santa is in Canada. Now he's in Africa. He's headed to Texas.
Yes.
Like that's how it kind of made me feel when you were describing that. But it is what it is. And you know what? Like sports are entertainment and it just adds to it. And it is fun.
Yeah. I'm all for it. I'm all for what it brings with it, especially like if you're covering a bad Patriots team. Give me the Swifties. Give me Taylor Swift. Give me
Patriots
something.
Fans were cheering for Taylor when she came on the Jumbotron at that game.
Crazy.
I remember people were posting it all over their Instagram stories like, Taylor's here. Taylor's here. You know, like forget the Pats game.
Yeah.
Like, Taylor was at the stadium.
Oh, yeah. Now I understand when people are like, they were like the Beatles or like experiencing the Beatles.
One Direction.
Yeah.
New era.
Same thing. Now it's Taylor Swift.
Same thing. Yeah.
Never got into One Direction. Can't name a single song. Again.
It's okay.
Not hating. I don't think
I'm not going to come after you, but I was a Directioner.
Appreciate it, AB. Hey, for more on the Red Sox offseason, check out Nesson's baseball podcast, 310 to Left. We know you have a lot of questions about the Sox future, so we ask the players, coaches, executives, and alum those same questions on 310 to Left. You can find it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and wherever else you get your podcasts. So as we talked about the top teams in the NFL with some of the biggest wins around the postseason, we talked about the head coaches. Sounds like Mike Vrabel is building out his staff in New England. So Mike Reese put out a story about the coordinators he could be looking at. And we'll start with the defensive options first. Top of his list, See the tweet on the screen. Terrell Williams, who spent all 6 seasons with Vrabel in Tennessee. Bobby King, who was with Vrabel in Tennessee as well for 2 seasons. Ryan Crow, again a Tennessee connection. And then Chris Harris, Titans cornerback coach in Mike Vrabel's final season. What the difference is you see in a year, Annabelle, is that for Mike Vrabel, he's had 6 years of head coaching experience before he got the Patriots job. Gerard Mayo had 5 years of NFL coaching experience, period. And Vrabel's been to Ohio State, Houston, Tennessee, now Cleveland, and here. So you see where him building out a staff will be no issue, where that was one of the biggest issues for the Patriots. It's important to see these names, especially a guy like Terrell Williams, who is very close to Mike Vrabel, has been coaching since 1998, in the NFL since 2012, was his associate head coach in his final season in Tennessee, to be atop this list, because that is when you need culture and you need leadership. It's more than the head coach. I'll keep saying it. It's in your coordinators and position coaches. Mike Vrabel, to me, is going to have no issue filling out the staff in those regards.
Yeah, he is, and he's in a great position, right? Because he's been around for so long. He's made those relationships. He's been able to figure out, who do I like working out with, who do I not, and that's who he's going to pick. He's going to pick someone who he has worked with in previous years, and someone really who is going to match his same ideas for culture, right? That has been a huge thing that he's been talking about. So I'm excited to see who it will be, but I think more so on like that defensive side, he's the defensive guy, right? Like this is going to be his defense. And so I'm not exactly sure. It's like, okay, he could really be anyone at this point, someone that he knows, because this is his defense and he's going to run it the way that he wants.
That's what's important with it all. And Terrell Williams, this last season, he was with the Lions defensive line run game coordinator. And that's him working with an Ali McNeil, Aiden Hutchinson before he went down, Zadarius Smith, being a key piece of that entire defense. And that's what is important too. You say it like, day to day, I know how this person operates. I know I can work with them. And I know who they are as a person. So as a head coach, you're in so many different spots. When a Terrell Williams or a Bobby King is in a defensive coordinator or position room, meeting room, you know what message you're driving. You know what they're doing for the culture to uphold it and just to keep everything in check. And that's what's important. So there's a Terrell Williams. To me, it would make sense for him to be the DC, especially to also the relationship he has with Mike Vrabel. Bobby King, currently the inside linebackers coach of the Eagles. Zach Bond has played at a Pro Bowl level for Philly this season. That is such a great reflection on him as an inside linebackers coach, because that was a guy that was drafted by the Saints as an edge defender coming out of college to become an off-ball linebacker, let alone inside linebacker, to a Pro Bowl level. That's Bobby King doing a great job of Philly, and Bobby King, who's learned from Vic Fangio. Ryan Crow, currently with the Dolphins outside linebackers coach. He was with Mike Vrabel all 6 seasons in Tennessee. And then Chris Harris, currently D-backs coach for the Lions, was a cornerbacks coach currently cornerbacks coach for the Titans. Again, was with Vrabel the final season. Then on the offensive side, familiar name, Josh McDaniels, top of the list. Then there's Tim Kelly, who's an offensive coordinator the final 2 seasons in Tennessee with Mike Vrabel, and Tony Dews, who has been with Mike Vrabel for 5 seasons in Tennessee as a running backs coach. He's currently the Jets running backs coach. So again, as you go offensive side, the guys he's familiar with, that's who the top of the list are that we're seeing on this report from Mike Reese of ESPN.
Well, I don't know why you wouldn't want to go to the Patriots if you're an OC, right? They have Mike Vrabel, you can take care of the defense. You have Drake May, too, a young quarterback who has a ton of potential. And like we're seeing with the Commanders, like you get the right OC, and you know that Vrabel is going to want to run the ball, right? So you need to pair those 2 things. But it's exciting, and like you said, Josh McDaniels is the favorite in this circumstance. He is loved by New England, and he loves New England, right? So this could be a really cool welcome home for him.
With Josh McDaniels, what jumps out to me, too, is he was in a defensive assistant for 2 seasons while Vrabel was with the Patriots as a player. He's been an offensive coordinator for 18 seasons combined. That's between the Patriots, the Rams, also count him as a head coach with the Broncos and Raiders, like him calling plays. And think of right before he left New England the second time, 2020 changed the entire offense for Cam Newton, got them to 9 wins. 2021 had Mac Jones looking like a Pro Bowl alternate and had them 6th in scoring. In 2022, he had Jimmy Garoppolo looking okay in Vegas. Like that was a roster that was void of talent. That could be a reflection on Josh McDaniels' decisions, his personnel. You bring him in as an OC. He's worried about the offense, and that's it. It's very difficult. It puts a lot on the quarterback. But if you keep certain people still around, Drake May, like a T.C. McCartney or maybe an Alex Van Pelt, that can help be, translators in a way. Hey, Josh is doing it this way. Is how we did it. Let's find that middle ground. That's how they can fill out the staff. If you go to a Tim Kelly, he's been an O-line coach, tight ends coach, offensive coordinator, passing game coordinator, quarterbacks coach, and then Tony Dews, running backs and tight ends coach in the past. And say those guys don't get it, but if Josh McDaniels is your OC, a Tim Kelly comes in as your passing game coordinator, Tony Dews comes in as your run game coordinator, guys Mike Vrabel knows, guys that have been on the same page and are familiar with the system. And I like you point out, like Mike Vrabel, we know him as like a run-first head coach. He's someone that goes, who's my best player? I'm going to build the offense around him. And of course, it was Derrick Henry all those years. Now it would be Drake May. I would be excited for him paired with Josh McDaniels. What do you do there? You know?
Definitely. And I'm even just looking at those other names, right? Tim Kelly and Dews, but like we're talking about the Giants offense and then the Jets offense. So it's like, it's kind of like a no-brainer here with McDaniels, right? But I think that's an interesting point you make about them just having supporting roles.
Yeah.
To the OC, so that could be really interesting. But you're right, like a lot of the teams that are having success in the NFL right now are running the ball, right? Like the Chiefs hit one wide receiver. Like, are you kidding me? And so as much as this is, okay, like we're building this around Drake May, we're super excited for this, you can just know that Vrabel is going to find someone who is going to value the run game as much as him.
And right, it's like it's the Jets, it's the Giants, but they went to different buildings. And especially learning, if you're Tim Kelly, learning from Brian Dable, just in general, being around him for a season when he was full on calling the plays. And the reflection on him that being a tight ends coach, tight end room is okay there, but you're just, again, you're around an offensive mind like Dable. Now you bring that into New England. That's what's important with building the staff too. Guys that have been in different places, different teams, different franchises, around different head coaches. What did you learn from them? What do you want to do here? But also familiarity with Mike Vrabel. They come in, it can only add. Like the outside experience is so helpful, especially if they want to build something long-term that can sustain success around Drake May. So it's interesting how he builds out the staff. And again, as these teams start to lose, now that the Lions are out of it, the Buccaneers are out of it. Like Liam Cohen can take any interview he wants. His position coaches can take any interview he wants. How does that start to speed up the process? And regardless, this report coming out shows that wheels are starting to move, which is so important for Vrabel. Have your staff in place because you need to know who your coordinators are, what the schemes are as they're getting ready for free agency and the draft to build out this roster more.
Right. And there's no rush, and that's something Vrabel has said. He's like, I'm not putting a timestamp. I'm not putting a timeline on it. But he also has the luxury to do that because you're the New England Patriots, right? You know who your ownership is. You'll do whatever it takes to win. And who wouldn't want to go coach for the New England Patriots with a franchise quarterback and Drake May? You know, he will be the face of this organization. And, you have Mike Vrabel who is ready to go.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about the head coach. So important. And you know who he brings in, especially if it's Josh McDaniels. Don't have to worry about the OC either. Hey, I'm George Balekji. She's Annabelle Hasselbeck. This was Boston is End of the Chat. Appreciate you guys making us a part of your day and tuning in. Make sure to catch new episodes every Monday through Friday, wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Prime. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button on Nesson's YouTube page. Give a thumbs up. Leave a comment as well. And you'll join the chat. And also send us emails, thechat@nesson.com, or use the hashtag NessonChat as well to join the conversation. For GB and AB, we'll see you guys next time.